My name is Yariv. I lead product management for Akamai's API Security platform. Earlier this morning, I was given a talk downstairs, so I'm sort of reusing the slides over here just to show you this slide, and then I'll just, browse around various windows to show you how things work. And in that discussion this morning, we were focusing on design because it's definitely where you get the most bang for your buck in terms of fixing things. And what we've seen is that, a lot of the things that we actually find out there when we're monitoring production servers could be traced back to bad design decisions, right? So definitely. Now, the SDLC that you see here, what we strive to do is we strive to protect it holistically. And I'm also the crazy person who's not going to say MCP. Well, I thought I wasn't to say MCP in all those talks, because we also do believe that at the gist of it is MCP comes on top of your APIs. There's going to be more API traffic, more complex authentication and authorization schemes. So we need to figure out APIs. Let's talk a bit about APIs, as well as, of course, MCP, which is yet another API. So designing, coding, building, testing, deploying, monitoring. So we try to cover all of these. We start with designing, which is you can upload OpenAPI specifications to our platform. So if we go to our platform, and that's the core product, the monitoring product. There's a testing product I would switch to soonish. So you can actually go, you can see all of the API specs, whether they've uploaded via CI/CD or via an integration with your repositories. You can look at the various specifications, and you can actually also see whether they pass security checks at the specification level, right? So yep, some pass, some fail. And we talked about some of those things that fail this morning, like, oh, we haven't even specified how we do authentication authorization in the spec itself, which is what we should be doing, right? So you want to start thinking about those things very, very early at the design stage. Now you get to coding. You have the API specification, you code it, and you build it, and basically what you do then is you test it. And what we have is we have a testing tool that integrates with our platform, which we call active testing. And you can use it to run dynamic tests that are very, very specific to APIs to stress out not just input validation, which is what most DAST tools do, but really to look at the logic, right? And what I will try to attempt to do now is actually show you something like that live, and let's see if it works. So we have demo application here, which is a very small, very unrealistic application that I've written. It basically has 3 APIs, 2 of which are the ones that are more interesting for us. You can post and create an article. Think of it as something protected, like your, I don't know, another account. And then you can get the article by ID, and you should only be able to get it if it's the article that you've written, right? And then we define, as part of the test settings, we can go and define various users and their authentication scheme. So we have 2 users to go through this. And then we can basically go and start scanning the thing. So switching here, hopefully it's not too small. And let me just, and pardon me for using Vim, it shows my age. But let's just go with, I don't know, the vulnerable server first. I will try to make this a bit larger. But this is the get implementation. Now, I'm certain that we all know enough Python to be able to read this, right? And we can see that basically it's only checking that the article exists, but it does not check that the user is allowed to see it, right? So what I'll do now is I'll just run this. Hopefully I have. And I'll run the testing tool. And now what developers are doing is they're running this on their development machines, right? And the testing tool spins up. You specify in the settings, which test suite you want to run. It hammers on the APIs, and it finds issues because, even if you write very, very, very simple stuff, you would still find issues. And one of the things that it found is of high severity. It's basically a broken object level authorization, right? And so what you want to do with that is, of course, you want to fix it. And what the developer typically does at this stage is they're running the tool locally, just like I'm doing. But we found a lot of, naturally, what you also do is you integrate that with your CI/CD pipeline, and then you add that into your security gate before production, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, the AppSec team now also has visibility into all of this. That's the latest scan from just now. And it's completed, and we can see that high severity finding that popped up, right? And it's sitting there. And there's access control for the enterprise, so who can see what, et cetera, et cetera. So I need to fix my code. I go back. I fix my code. So let's kill this. Let's look at the fixed code, which is it's a fairly simple fix, right? So basically, if it's not the user with this token, then forbidden, right? So that should fix the issue. We run the fixed version. We test it again. Everything works. And the problem is gone, hopefully. Now, it is so important that this can run on the developer machine in CI/CD automation and as security gate, and that everybody has shared visibility into the results, because this is exactly the sort of disconnect that we've seen happen in companies, and the larger the enterprise, the more the disconnect is, between the application security teams and the development teams, right? So they're not seeing the same picture, basically. The developer saying, yes, I tested. They're not saying that it has been tested, et cetera, et cetera. So they need to come together through this, shared pane of glass in which they can see that this is gone. And of course, you still have other misconfigurations because I'm running a local debug server and stuff like that. So this is for testing. What else do we do, right? So we've covered the testing part. You then go and you deploy. You've implemented this into your security gate, so you don't allow things with high severity issues to get deployed to production. And then we monitor production. And what we do is we look at all of the traffic, and we have more than 60 different ways in order to get the traffic. And we actually create a live inventory out of all of that traffic, right? And so you can basically discover all of your APIs to a very, very high resolution, right? So you get to see which data types are there. You get to see examples. You get to see even an automatically generated open API specification from the traffic. We found out a lot of teams for legacy APIs, they don't even have open API specifications for those APIs. So what they do is they actually download that, use that as sort of a base for their process, and then they build a process around it, and that's how they bootstrap their process. And we, of course, go and we check spec compliance, and we compare, if we have specification for that specific API, we compare what the developer says it does versus what the traffic actually shows it does. And then we generate, of course, security events around this. So I just wanted, to show you how the full picture and how complicated it is, right? And so how you really need to have not just disparate tools, but sort of have everything available to everyone in sort of a democratic fashion so that everyone can chime in, be part of the conversation, understand what's going on, what the risks are, and fix them. And that's it for me. Thank you very much.